Hello and welcome to another episode of Nse Finwiz, powered by CNBC TV 18 Season 3. Today we are at the Gurgaon office of one of India's fastest growing auto manufacturers, Renault India. Renault is a French multinational automobile manufacturer. One of the biggest automakers in the world, Renault produces a wide variety of cars and vans. Nse Finwiz visited Renault in Gurgaon with the country's finest experts to advise and educate the young employees on investments and financial planning. I'm now joined by our two very special experts. We have Feroze Azeez, who's the Deputy CEO with Anand Rathi Financial Services. Welcome to the show, Feroze. And we have Tanveer Alam, who's the founder and CEO at Fincart. Welcome to the show, Tanveer.
Thanks, Ahmed.
And our core topic for today is medical insurance. So Tanveer, let's start off. Why is medical insurance important? Why do I need it?
Oh, in fact, the cost of hospitalization is rising very rapidly. In fact, the inflation for hospitalization is in excess of about 15%. A normal cardiac surgery today will cost you upward of 3 to 5 lakhs, depending upon what kind of cardiac surgery is there. And it is expected to rapidly go up only. So that puts a big dent, just in case if you if anyone of your loved ones get diagnosed with a critical disease, so that puts you behind by a number of years. And I'm just sharing a live example with one of my clients who did. His mother fell critically ill, and the bill for the last 1 year was approximately 40 lakh rupees. He had a company insurance for about 10 lakh rupees covering, and he had to pay from his own pocket approximately 30 odd lakh rupees, okay, for a serious critical illness. So that could be that denting in your pocket.
But then, Feroze, how do you decide the amount? How do you decide what is the quantum of medical insurance that I should take? And very often, like Tanveer said with his client, the company had his company had a certain amount of medical insurance policy. So how do you decide that figure and fill the gap?
See, there are two kinds of categories where you would actually have a large dent. One is specific critical illness, which is disease specific, which are the ones which actually have the largest expense. For example, a deadly disease like these critical illnesses, where the cost is going to be significantly smaller, right? But the general insurance, which is the normal course where somebody actually gets hospitalized for something not as serious as that, there I think a family of four, from an Indian context perspective and the medical expense perspective, a 5 lakh cover is mandatory as a family floater. The good part about these policies is any of them in the financial year can use each other's share. It's not going to be a lakh and a quarter per person. It's going to be a cumulative. It's very unlikely that in a family of four, all of them end up in the same year being ill. So having a cover and then also covering yourself on critical diseases which can actually have bills which are obscene, like 20, 30, 50 lakhs, and you can't even let go of a life of a dear one, and you would still make sure that you get into debt and still get the best treatment. So categorize your requirement into two: critical illnesses which can be really, really very serious. Those require specific policies and a family floater. So that's what I would say should be the strategy.
Tanveer, is there any benefit of getting a medical insurance policy at an early age? So they've started, maybe this is their first or the second on new jobs. Does it make sense to get a medical policy now, or wait till, okay, when I get to 40? Because, I mean, you know, usually you're hoping and you're wishing that you're in good health till the 40s, and once 50s hits, you start getting the serious illnesses. So you're like, why should I get an insurance policy now? I'll wait till I'm 40. Any benefits of getting it at 20, 25? In
fact, if you actually buy a medical insurance at an early age, it's very advantageous. One is basically because of changing lifestyle and the way we possibly living today, a lot of younger age people are getting acquiring disease like diabetes and blood pressure at an early age. Okay. Now, if you don't buy a policy when you are healthy, and later stage when you want to buy a policy, and God forbid you are diagnosed with a disease like diabetes or a blood pressure, there are many insurance companies who would be reluctant to issue insurance to you at that point of time. And to be very honest, especially for corporate executives, when you're working, this insurance policy that you're buying is also in somewhat a part of your retirement planning that you're doing. Because as Feroze rightly said, the normal hospitalization bill will not be too much bearing. and most of the time it gets covered by the company medical insurance policies. It's only when you overshoot those, then your individual policies comes into play. So when you're buying a particular policy, ensure that what kind of cost you will incur when you retire. And hence, having a base policy of say a 5 lakh is good enough, but you can also add a super top-up of 20 lakh rupees. Now that super top-up comes at a very, very nominal fee. For example, I'm giving you my example. I'm 43-year-old, family of 4. I'm covered for 25 lakhs for only 19,000 bucks. My base policy costs about 14,000 bucks, and I'm paying for additional 20 lakh and approximately 6,000 rupees. So by paying only 20,000 bucks, I'm covered for 25 lakh. Now this, why is this essential? Today the medical bill of 5 lakh may look sufficient, but if you look back 20 year, 30 year down the line, that may not be sufficient.
Kumar Prashant has a question. He says, most of the medical insurance doesn't cover day-to-day illnesses without hospitalization. Normally people like us don't fall ill before 50, so choosing a medical insurance and spending money till I turn 50 doesn't make sense. Is it useful? But I wanted to, you could say, tweak his question a little. When he says that it doesn't cover day-to-day illness without hospitalization, what about OPD? What about, just outpatient department when you're going? How does that policy cover that way?
See, there are some policies actually which cover you on the OPD as well. Sometimes there are some policies which actually have an additional premium to be paid, and this becomes superimposed feature on the existing policy. So OPD not being covered by any policy is a matter of the past. Now there are some policies which actually cover the outpatient expenses as well. OPD it's an abbreviation to an outpatient department where you actually don't get hospitalized and you still have some expenses which you need to claim. So specific to policies, you actually get an OPD claim as well.
On that note, it's time for a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Nse Finwiz, powered by CNBC TV 18 Season 3. Feroze, when we start talking about personal finance, there is a lot of confusion people have about the different avenues in which they can put their money. So we hear about equities, there's confusion about mutual funds, and then there'll be like debt, so my fixed deposit, real estate, gold. So, and which is our, the terminology that we use, which is diversification and asset allocation. Could you simplify that, and is there a thumb rule that can be followed for them about what percentage of their money should be in which bracket?
So before I get to the percentages, so there's, first let me explain the nomenclature very commonly used in personal finance. It's called asset allocation. Okay, asset allocation is nothing but a phenomena of investing your money in different assets, right? What are assets? Assets are those where you expect something to come back to you. Is insurance an asset? No, it's an expense, right? Because anywhere you put your money and then you expect something in return, it's an asset. So the point being made here is allocating your money in different assets, the phenomena is called asset allocation. Now how much to invest in which asset? If you look at the Indian group of Indians, their investment philosophy over a period of their life cycle works like this. As soon as you have some money, a person, this first saving goes into gold. Then he says, okay, let me buy myself a LIC insurance policy specifically. Then he goes into a fixed deposit, then a home, then mutual funds, and then comes equity. This is dramatically different than those countries who have already gone through this learning curve, and so equities come. Equity is nothing but shares, stocks, bonds. All those are equity and debt instruments. Those are actually a last preference from an Indian perspective. So coming back to what should be allocated where, is I think the next generation or this generation needs to think over its head and start investing into equities, small quantums, because that's the most affordable investment. Because even if you wish to buy gold, you'll have to at least buy a gram of gold coin, right? That's also about 2,500 rupees. But an equity investment across different stocks could be done at as low as 500 to 1,000 rupees a month. So the point I'm trying to make is equities for a young 30-year-old, 35-year-old should be a large corpus, about 30-35%, and about 30-35% in debt instruments. Debt instruments are where you lend to corporates. Equity instruments are where you become partners to corporates. What is equity? Equity is you being partner with Renault, is equity. You lending money to this corporate is debt. That's the key distinction. So 35, and some degree of precious metal like 10-15%, and real estate. Real estate only comes after you've bought yourself a home to live in. So that would be a general thumb rule kind of thing, but it's very specific to the individual who's actually formulating his personal finance strategy.
Okay.
Today, it's the age of technology, and a lot of us, myself including, I was completely not aware of what handling your own finance is all about. Now, how does one read more or learn more about this?
I will give a simple structure answer to your question, and this could be also some kind of a framework for managing your own money. Okay. And that basically structure is called, when you're drawing your own financial plan, what are the things that you should cover. And then within each category, I would say when you Google around, you'll get a lot of information and you can read up. It's called ERGRE. You can from any side write ERGRE. E is first plan your emergency fund, which typically should be for working executive approximately 6 months of your monthly expenditures. R is risk protection, which typically would mean protecting any kind of asset, including your life. And for life insurance, please only buy online term insurance. Okay. 2, health insurance, that is medical insurance that you must have. Third, if you have a family history of some critical illness, it makes sense to buy critical illness, because when critical illness strikes, what is the difference between a critical illness and a medical insurance? The critical illness will give you lump sum money for treatment, because a lot of this critical illness treatment you need money on a regular basis beyond hospitalization. The fourth is covering your asset. For example, you have a home, you need to cover that assets. That's what. That protects your risk per se. G is for goal planning. The way I defined, it could be a children education, it could be your marriage, children's marriage, your own retirement, or any other goals that you may have. R is typically the retirement planning that you might. Each one of us have retirement planning. We typically tend to avoid things which are very far off, human nature. Okay? But don't ignore that. The cost of living is going to be phenomenally high. Not only that, you'll be surprised that our lifespan will rapidly increase. And we might be living 90, 100 and even 120 years. And I'll come back to that again aspect. And E, last, is estate planning. We typically ignore this part very much. For example, even if you're married, when a spouse invests, a husband invests, the nominee would be a spouse. I'm assuming that to be true. Okay? And vice versa. Okay? But we go on holidays together, isn't it? God forbid something happens. Who takes care of your loved ones? So it makes sense to even write a will in a small piece of paper, how you want your wealth to get distributed. So these are 5 things that you need to cover. And anything related to each of the aspects, if you study, there are a lot of bloggers are there who are providing great insight on the investment. I think you'll get a lot of thing to read upon it.
You're watching Nse Finwiz, powered by CNBC TV 18 Season 3. It's time for a short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching Nse Finwiz, powered by CNBC TV 18 Season 3. And today we're at the Gurgaon office of Renault India. Tanvi, why is an online term life insurance policy the best? Because people would argue that, you know, if I'm getting insurance plus I'm getting like a ULIP which will give me some money back, etc., I'm getting like 1 + 1. So why should I just go for a plain vanilla term insurance?
Okay, like Feroze said in the earlier part, insurance is an expense, not an investment. Any kind of insurance related investment is like drinking and driving. It's not safe. So treat insurance separately and investment separately. Insurance is to cover your risk, the risk of what is called income substitution. God forbid something happens to the bread earner of the family, how will the family survive? How will they meet their goals? And that expense, treat that as an expense. Now for a 30-year-old, online term insurance for 1 crore would cost about 10-12,000 bucks. So if you divide by 365 days, it's not even a cup of coffee at Cafe Coffee Day. Okay, so that's cheap, is it? And many a times you'll realize that you're paying more premium for your cars than for your own life. And you decide which is more important, your own life or your car. Okay, that's one part. Secondly, when it comes to insurance and investment, why we are in favor of a mutual fund vis-a-vis ULIP, very simple thing. If you look at mutual fund and ULIP, they invest in the same set of markets. The only fact remains that mutual fund comes at an expense, indirect expense of 2.5% approximately, whereas a ULIP on an average costs you between 7% to even 10-12% annually. Now you decide if you have to buy a product, same quality product, or in fact a better transparency product in a mutual fund, would you want to pay a charge of 2.5% or want to pay 12%? So rational mind says you will pay less for a better quality product. That's why we favor mutual fund as an investment, and insurance, it should be through only in term insurance only.
One, when goes to invest in mutual funds, for example, I decide to invest in mid-cap funds. There are multiple mid-cap funds which are available there in the market. How to decide which one is the best one for me?
Correct. So thanks to technology, thanks to research, the life has become really simple if you choose to make it simple. Now that you want to choose a mutual fund, the most interpretable method of understanding it is star ratings. As long as you take a mid-cap fund which is 5-star rated, you can't go grossly wrong at all. So you should just go into the category, and it's very easy to maneuver yourself to the category and then choose any good 5-star fund. And the rest of the criteria, you can actually look at 106 statistical variables to choose a mutual fund if you actually want to complex your life. Or you can just look at the comprehensive star rating and just say, let me buy a 5-star fund, so I will not go grossly wrong. But the most important expectation and delivery mismatch happens when you expect a mutual fund to do a trick in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Mutual funds are vehicles to create wealth, not to make money. Making money is something which you take the money, party that night saying that I earned a lot of money, and then you blow it up. Wealth creation is the only thing which changes an individual's lifestyle. And mutual fund is a vehicle which helps you create wealth, and that's going to happen over really long periods of time. 1,000 rupee invested for 30 years every month becomes 54 lakh rupees, even at a mediocre mutual fund return. Now 1,000 rupees we blow up, probably a dinner cost, a good fine dine costs 2,000 rupees in a metro city like Delhi today. 2,000 rupees could actually, if you just set aside saying that I would have one less dinner, can accumulate you 1 crore. Now that's wealth on a 2,000 rupees. So the most important point is, after making a choice, being very patient with a mutual fund is an intrinsic attribute you'll have to tell yourself. Otherwise, patience is what will be lacking during the process of investment.
Well, that's about all the time that we have. Thank you so much, Feroze. Thank you, Tanveer, for being here. Thank you so much for having us here. Thank you.
It was a wonderful show, very informative, and yeah, I had lost track of some of my investments. Now I'll definitely take care of that.
It seemed like quite an informative session. Whatever myths we had about the whole thing, how medical insurances are, what they are all about, it cleared a lot of myths. Quite an informative session, and definitely opened our minds about the whole thing, how it's happening.
The session was quite informative. Many things I knew, but there were many things that were typical that I didn't know, and I am now quite wise and full of wisdom guy.
Well, that's all on this episode of Nse Finwiz, powered by CNBC TV 18 Season 3. But before we go, here's a chance for you to win a cool goodie bag by answering this viewer question.
Which one of the following best describes wealth protection plans? It protects the loss of my wealth due to children claiming it as their inheritance. It protects the loss of income due to critical illness. It protects the loss of my wealth due to charity donation. All of the above. Send in your answers at fwq@network18online.com. The correct answer to last week's viewer question is option A, 10 to 15% of my monthly income. Many thanks to all the viewers who sent in their replies. The winners to episode 9's viewer question are Chanchal Wankhade and Rupesh Shah.
We'll see you next week with another set of young employees at another company. Until then, from the entire team, many thanks for watching.